let's dive into the story of a company you think you know, but you probably don't. We're going way beyond the shiny phones and the sleek TVs to uncover the epic and honestly pretty contradictory story of how Samsung became the giant it is today.
Right off the bat, you've got this massive paradox. On one hand, Samsung is a global icon, a huge source of national pride for South Korea. But on the other hand, well, its history is tangled up in scandals. Its leaders are part of a trend among Korea's powerful family-run empires, the chaebols. Get this, more than half the leaders of the 10 biggest chaebols are convicted criminals, and yet every single one has been pardoned. So how can both of these things be true at the same time?
To even begin to understand that, we have to go way back. The story doesn't start in some high-tech lab. Nope, it starts with a small company trading groceries and dried fish, born out of the chaos of war and the desperate need to build a nation.
From the very beginning, founder B.C. Lee built Samsung with this really unique cultural DNA. Communication was sparse. Unlike the direct, say-what-you-mean style in the West, at Samsung you had to master something called Nunchi. It's basically the art of reading the room, of sensing your boss's mood without a single word being spoken. It wasn't just a nice skill to have, it was absolutely essential for survival.
And that culture? Well, it took some pretty surprising turns. Thanks to a close alliance with South Korea's dictator Park Chung-hee, Samsung developed this almost military-like discipline. And it showed up in these massive company rallies with rituals that, looked eerily similar to stuff you'd see in North Korea. Like creating a human formation of a Pegasus, which in the north is called a cholima, a powerful symbol of speed and hard work.
All right, let's fast forward to the early 90s. At this point, Samsung is a beast at home, but on the world stage, it was kind of a joke. They were known for making cheap, third-rate electronics, and this drove the chairman Lee Kun-hee to a complete existential crisis. He was so worried the company was just going to fade away that he couldn't sleep, he lost over 20 pounds. So what did he do? He flew 200 of his top executives to Frankfurt, Germany, and dropped this bombshell on them. This single phrase would change everything. This wasn't just some motivational speech. It was a revolution from the very top down. This new management initiative was a full-on declaration of war against being mediocre. No more cheap junk. The new obsession was quality and design. And they weren't just a Korean company anymore. They were going global. They even changed the workday to 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. just to shock the entire system. This was the moment they started gearing up for world domination.
And all that newfound ambition, it put them on a direct collision course with Apple, sparking the biggest, most brutal corporate showdown in tech history.
When Samsung dropped its first Galaxy smartphone, a phone that, let's be honest, looked a lot like the iPhone, Steve Jobs was absolutely furious. He saw it as a complete ripoff, and he told his biographer he was willing to go to thermonuclear war to destroy it.
But here's the thing, Samsung didn't back down. They went on the attack. They launched this just brilliant, super aggressive marketing campaign that went right after Apple's most dedicated fans, literally making fun of them for waiting in line for a new iPhone, when, as the ads claimed, Samsung already had the next big thing. So, of course, Apple took them to court. And that kicked off this insane legal war that stretched across the entire globe. We're talking more than 50 lawsuits. Apple's opening salvo, they demanded a staggering $2.5 billion in damages. And this slide right here perfectly explains Samsung's whole strategy. They were masters of the fast follow, but then they'd innovate where Apple wouldn't. Steve Jobs famously trashed their bigger phone screens, calling them Hummers that no one would ever buy. But Samsung pushed ahead with the phablet, consumers absolutely loved it, and eventually, Apple had to play catch-up and release bigger iPhones of their own.
But that relentless, obsessive drive to win, to be faster, to be bigger, to beat everyone, it came at a massive cost. Which really makes you wonder, right? What happens when a company's greatest strength, its incredible speed, becomes its most catastrophic weakness? Well, this happens. The Galaxy Note 7 disaster was a direct result of that culture we've been talking about. To go head-to-head with the iPhone 7, they actually skipped the Note 6, pushed their suppliers at a crazy pace, and fostered an environment where engineers felt they couldn't speak up about problems. The result? A phone that literally caught on fire. And, this win-at-all-costs mindset wasn't a one-time thing. Years before that, Samsung was at the very heart of a giant price-fixing conspiracy. They illegally conspired to fix the price of memory chips for some of the biggest names in tech. We're talking Dell, HP, and even their future arch-rival, Apple.
And all of this brings us right back to Samsung's huge and often very troubling role in its own country.
There's a reason South Koreans often call their country the Republic of Samsung. The company is so fundamental to the economy that the idea of it failing is just unthinkable. A crisis simulation estimated that if Samsung were to actually collapse, the national unemployment rate would almost triple, jumping from 3.5% to over 10%.
Being too big to fail creates this culture of impunity. It means that even when these powerful leaders are convicted of serious crimes like bribery, they're often seen as being above the law. Chairman Lee Kun-hee himself was convicted and then pardoned, not once, but twice.
And when the company gets challenged by outsiders, the backlash can be, well, shocking. During a nasty fight with an American hedge fund run by Paul Singer, the South Korean media basically circled the wagons to defend Samsung, launching this intense, nationalistic campaign that at times devolved into just blatant and ugly anti-Semitism.
Which leaves us with one last big question. Samsung proved to the entire world that it could take on Apple and win the smartphone war. But maybe its biggest battle, the one that will truly define its future, is the war against the very culture that made it a Goliath in the first place.